Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson.
My Terry Metalis impersonation. We hear you loud and clear, fans!
And Alan Seiler.
Well, I was just going to do a dumb quote from the show. I didn't get that creative with it. So I'm going to say, I would like this ship to go
now.
Yeah, and tonight we're going to be diving into some of the Star Trek news that we've had to sort of mention and move away from real quick so we can talk about Star Trek Picard over the last few weeks. We're going to be breaking down the Strange New Worlds trailer, talking about Section 31, and time permitting, some more. But before we do that, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yes, I do, and I found this very interesting in light of what we're talking about, which is legacy and things like Picard, which finally became a surprise hit. Now people want another series. And Strange New Worlds, which is a surprise hit, which came from fan response to Captain Pike's appearance. 23rd of April, 1993, the first draft was submitted for the movie that was called Star Trek Generations.
Wow.
The torch hander passer, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Charles, was that the one? Was that the first one you saw in theater?
That's the first one I remember seeing in theaters. Yeah, I was 13 when that came out. So if I saw Star Trek 6, I'd have been 10.
Wow.
I don't remember it. I wasn't as into it then as I was by the time I was 13. I was like 100% Trekkie at that point.
First movie I saw in theater was the motion picture.
Now, I don't think it's the first movie I saw in theaters. But the first
right.
Oh,
that's
no.
what I was going to say.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. That was wrong. First Star Trek movie I saw. The first movie I saw, believe it or not, was Night of the Living Dead when I was 4 years old. My dad took me to see it.
Good parenting. That's all I'm going to say there.
Yeah. And then another one I found very interesting, because we've talked about all these new shows like Prodigy. And again, I like this because you never know where things turn up. On the 24th of April, 1968, one Theodore Sturgeon submitted a script for the original series that, to his disappointment, was not developed. The name of that script was Shore Leave 2, which of course is the sequel to The Planet with the Big Rabbit and Alice in Wonderland, and everything you think about comes to life.
Right.
And I like that episode. One final interesting thing about that episode is that it introduced this theme, which I'm not going to try to sing, called Ruth's theme, which is when Kirk sees his old love. That theme, which became a song of love, is actually more known for This Side of Paradise, when it's basically the sad scenes with Spock. Nobody knows it's called Ruth's theme. Everybody thinks it's kind of like Spock's sad love song theme. But later on in the original series, we did come back to the Shore Leave Planet in an episode called Once Upon a Planet, which ironically was not written by Theodore Sturgeon. It was taken up by some other folks.
Right.
But given, I don't know if they remember, but given what happened in the animated episode, I don't know if they could have done some of the effects they needed in the original series as well.
Right.
Moving forward, another important thing for history, 25th of April, 1988, was the premiere of an episode called The Skin of Evil.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
Most famous, of course, for being the exit of Tasha Yar.
Yeah. Exit.
Yeah. In the senseless death, as they called it. What I find really interesting about that is I really don't like that episode. I mean, it's just there. It's kind of harmless. But what I find interesting is Denise Crosby left because she felt that her character was completely wasted on the show. And then, of course, as the show got better and they started finding more stuff for Worf to do, then she was like, well, damn, if I'd known they were going to write like this, maybe I would have stuck it out. And that's why
you got to stick it out. I mean, you can't just jump ship 5 minutes into being there.
Right.
So, sorry, Denise. You should have stuck around.
Hey, Charles, it'd be great if on our hot. I'll say, go ahead, Alan.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be great if on our hotline you get a phone call that's from Denise Crosby?
Hey, man, at least we get a phone call.
Right. We've got one so far, and it was from me.
Right.
Oh, great.
I like Skin of Evil. It's not a great episode, but the thing that I like about it is that in that first season, nobody knew what to do with Troy. And you have this whole episode where she spends just psychoanalyzing the bad guy.
Yeah.
And just really gets under, and this is a pun, gets under his skin, gets under his skin of evil. And I think it's great. I think that that's the first time that you see there's actual potential in that character.
Yeah, I agree, Alan. And also, even though I don't love the execution of the show, it's really a fairly sophisticated sci-fi concept where an entire race of people literally supposedly cast off all their evil and immorality and stuff into that one being. That's a pretty sophisticated concept.
And they were described as like titans. So I mean, you're right. It's cool sci-fi ideas that I don't think that the Armus character pulled off.
Right.
Now, had they been able to do it the way that they did the whatchamacallits in Discovery, the ones that looked like Armus but weren't because they were the scary people from Saru's planet. That was amazing.
Is that the something?
Cool?
Yes, yeah, I agree with you, Alan. Those are still some of the most amazing aliens I have seen in Trek history. I mean, just amazingly well done. Jumping back, I missed one with D24, and I had to put this on because this is the one that spawned a million memes. And 1989 was the premiere of the Next Generation episode, The Icarus Factor.
Oh, God.
Yes.
One of the classics.
We're hitting all the highlights tonight.
I know, right? Alan's response says it all. For those who don't know, that's the Ambujitsu one where Riker and his father are fighting blindfolded with those stupid glowy sound emitting sticks. And a million themes have been born, as in Lower Decks has addressed it, of course. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Great show. And the last one we just have to mention, on the 29th of April, 1955, was born one Kate Mulgrew, Captain Janeway.
Yay, Captain Kate.
Not the first female captain in Trek, but the first female captain to head a series in Star Trek.
Yeah. And now Admiral Janeway.
That's right. And possibly coming back for who knows what, because everybody wants to come back. Even freaking Robert Beltran decided to come back. And that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Let me get a comment about the news that we're sharing real quick, and that is our good buddy Matt Sweatman says Denise filmed one more episode, Symbiosis, after Skin of Evil, which aired before her death episode. Towards the end of Symbiosis, you can see her wave in the background during her actual last scene filmed. Yep, that's right.
Good. That's a good call, Matt. I forgot to mention that. You're right. She was waving goodbye in the episode that was aired before the episode where she actually died.
There you go.
Another interesting thing about Skin of Evil, which it is what it is, because it's AI. We're talking about stuff like Chat GPT. If you watch the episode where her hologram is saying its goodbyes, her hologram looks at everybody that she talks to.
Yeah, of course.
Not the biggest thing. You could do that with AI. It's a little interesting though to see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're listening on the audio podcast, we'll take a quick break right here and promote a fellow ESO Network podcast show. But hang around, because when we come back, we're going to be breaking down the Strange New Worlds teaser trailer. So stay right there.
Woo-hoo!
And if you're watching with us live, you get to watch me first turn on the share screen thing. It takes just a moment.
It's riveting.
Charles, don't worry about it. I grew up in the day where you had to watch people thread tape through reel-to-reel film projectors.
All right. So tonight we're talking about the Strange New Worlds teaser trailer, which aired just a week or two ago. And I mean, it's got everything goes by kind of fast, but there's a lot actually in it. And I reordered my screen caps because some of the episodes or some of the images are sort of generic images. You can't really tell a lot of context of what's going on, but some of them you can. So I sort of grouped them by episodes. But I started off with the ones that I couldn't directly associate with an episode. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, we'll do our best to describe what we're seeing as we're discussing it.
So that means more than just going, holy crap.
Wow, that's neat. Next. All right. So we've got the Strange New Worlds crew. And all of the images, it looks like Una is part of the crew.
Yes.
We ended last season with her being taken away in handcuffs.
Right.
Yes.
But we didn't see a lot of images of her in shackles, in the brig, anything like that.
Yeah, because she was genetically engineered, right? That was the whole point.
Right. But we did get some of our new character in there.
Yes.
That's
Just
okay.
pretty.
Carol.
I am so excited about Carol Kane.
Mm-hmm.
So excited. My hesitation about this, I'm afraid that she's going to become like a second Jet Reno. Because Carol
Right.
Kane is known for that sort of acerbic, that sarcastic character, and I don't want her to be just like a carbon copy but with curly blonde hair of
Right.
Reno. I want her to be a
Yeah.
distinct character, but at the same time, that smack talking engineer character is, I mean, I think we need that on this show. So
Mhm.
I'll be fine with whatever they do because I adore her so much.
I thought you were going to say you thought she was going to be a second Hemmer, and that's sort of what I'm worried
Oh.
about. Is if they go back to that ice planet, I'm going to be worried about her. I don't want to throw her off that mountain too.
A
No.
Kill Kenny kind of meme with different people, right? Every year somebody has to fall off the
Yep.
ship.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
One thing I was going to say, Charles, in the first scene you showed that showed Pike, Spock, and number one, I
Mhm.
really do hope number one gets more to do this season. She was kind of more of a background. She was around, but
Yeah.
she wasn't essential. Even though she did have a decent little story with her being genetically engineered, but I'd like to see her being more of a presence than she was.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know they filmed the show in Toronto, so I'd kind of speculated last year that maybe there was they only had her for a certain amount of time,
Right.
because not everybody can just up and move their family to Toronto for however many months. I
Mhm.
don't know that that's the case, but that might be a reason if she's got other commitments and family commitments in California, that maybe that could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, and then I saw her and the husband. I'm sorry, I saw her and the husband show up on that series, The Real Love Boat, and I thought, oh man, wow, you could do Star Trek.
Let me get a couple of quick comments about what we've just seen. Matt Sweatman
Cool.
says, "Ooh, I didn't know we were getting a PowerPoint presentation." My buddy Adam Levenstein says, "Carol Mother effing Kane."
That's right.
That is the correct response.
Every time
He
I see
then
her,
says,
I think
"I'd be okay if they came up with some sort of magic to move Jet Reno to Strange New Worlds. It would be stupid, but it'd be good to see."
Right.
And Dan Leckie, our buddy from Scotland, says, "How long before they bring on Scotty?" That's what I'm excited about. That's a good point. That's a good point.
I'm hoping not in this series, Dan. That's a very personal preference.
Well,
I think it's already overloaded with legacy
Yeah,
characters.
I agree with that.
Callback characters. And we'll get to one that really drives me up the wall, so I don't really need to see Scotty on top of everybody else.
yeah.
That's
Well, you may want to manage your expectations on that, Keith, because they've not shown a lot of restraint with that sort of thing.
Good point.
Oh boy, that is the truth.
All right, so we had what looks like Mbenga and maybe La'an sparring,
Yeah.
maybe number one, not really sure, but I know that the actor who plays Mbenga is like a black belt or something.
What,
in
real
some,
life?
in some kind of martial arts.
Oh,
So if they
cool.
delve into that with him, I think that'd be cool.
Yes,
and
definitely.
incorporate that into his character.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because Mbenga is he's such a kind of a tightly controlled, quiet guy.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see he's a great fighter or something like that, or those passions come out of him in different ways. Because I imagine he's still sad about what happened to his daughter.
Well,
yeah,
but those martial arts are so disciplined, and I think that fits his personality quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing that angle with him.
Me too.
Yeah. And we have the Enterprise flying through something. It looks like it looks like snow, but it's probably not. A cool shot of the shuttlecraft at a planet, and that's one thing I love about Strange New Worlds is that we go to planets. We have adventures.
Yeah. You know what ruins me? Every time I see a scene that looks like that with that greenery, I instantly think Chateau Picard.
Well, don't.
Yeah, thank you. So, toward the end of the trailer, we see Uhura standing outside a crashed shuttle. I bet you that is part of that scene.
Yep.
And there's Mbenga looking distraught.
Mbenga having a hard time.
Is he injured or just sweaty?
I don't know. It could be after that sparring scene, perhaps, or it could be that there's something else going on. We don't have any context for that.
Right.
For some reason, again, as soon as I saw that, I just thought he was thinking about his daughter.
That could be. That could be. And we've got him a little more lighthearted, fist bumping with, Nurse Chapel. And I've seen people complain about the fist bumping, and that sort of thing doesn't bother me at all. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one good thing about Star Trek is that it can feel young. It doesn't have to feel old all the time. You know, you can appeal to the current younger generation.
Yeah.
I remember in one episode of TNG, and I forget the one, but Troy suggested something, and somebody went along with her suggestion, and she did the old thing where you do your fist up and draw it down with a yes. And I heard people complain about that and said, well, they wouldn't still have that gesture in the
I don't
24th
remember that
century.
at all. I don't remember
Yeah,
Troy ever doing that.
She did. I'll find the episode because I'll tell you where
Well,
I
don't
first
worry
read
about it
about
now.
I found it in the Nitpicker's Guide to Star Trek. Is why I read about it.
Well, Data did that as well in Generations.
Yes.
And
yeah,
that's the one that I remember.
That's
I mean, one time McCoy referenced dipping girls' pigtails in inkwells, which is not a 23rd century reference.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's an old country doctor. So
That's
anyway, moving on.
All right. We got some fun on the bridge. This shot I thought was interesting. It's an overhead shot of Ortega's at her station with a proximity alert, kind of a cool look at her console, but also she's got
really nice.
A pad sitting here with her own picture on it.
Right.
So I'm not sure if she's looking at, like, I don't know if she's got a performance review. I don't know what the situation is, but you don't usually see this angle. I thought that was kind of a neat look at the helm the helm sort of nav console.
And shows how they because with technology and with time, they can make these things more what we would think would be logical to back in the days of Sulu and Chekhov, where they literally had to look through the view screen to see they were going because you never saw anything like that. And they had those big buttons to push.
Yeah. But she does still have the little HUD viewer that pops up.
Yeah, that's a cool callback. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a romantic scene, but
I don't either. I
hope not.
Yeah.
But it's obviously intended to make us wonder if it is.
Right. I wouldn't expect Mbenga and Nurse Chapel to. Who knows, though? I thought this shot of the Enterprise in orbit, it was kind of reminiscent of the classic shots of the Enterprise orbiting a planet.
Yeah.
And to me, there's times, and it could just be because there's a star right here, but the Enterprise looks a little bit lighter in color than it did last season. But that could just be my memory playing tricks on me. We've got folks on the bridge, folks having a good time.
Like a
lot of Mbenga popping up in this.
There is a lot. I was surprised by that. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. And in this shot, they're in the rec deck, and I just gotta say, I love the design aesthetic. It's sort of modernized, but they're keeping that sort of mid-century modern look to the chairs and all that stuff. I think it looks really good. I think it works really well in the series, even though I think all the sets are like comically large.
Yeah.
Oh, enormously large. It makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah. I like the view of the planet out there because it looks
there's a planet out the windows.
I swear I started to say something completely unscientific that they were at the bottom of the planet, but but it's a cool angle because so many times in Star Trek they literally are just flying right above the middle of the planet, the equator.
Right.
And I love when they do these weird angles where they come in from say the southern hemisphere of a planet. And ironically, the first show to do that, where you saw the ship come in from the southern hemisphere of the planet and move up, was Captain Pike in the original series.
Okay.
The Cage. Yeah. Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah. This is one of the most exciting things to me in the trailer because it's Nurse Chapel and Uhura, and they're just in some weird alien place.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on. I don't have any context for it. I just like that it's nothing that I recognize from Star Trek. It's just something weird and strange.
Yeah, is that glowing plants or rocks or something? It's pretty wild looking.
Right. Then we've got George Kirk is back.
Right.
A few sort of civilian looking ladies. I don't have any reason to believe this, but that could be Aurelin, his wife in the original series. Who knows?
Oh, that's a good. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but he's toasting with Nurse Chapel, so maybe something to do with him getting married. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
And we've got Ortegas in a civilian outfit, doing sort of finger guns, or a finger
guns.
And then, if you notice in this trailer, I mean, she's doing a little curtsy here, but Uhura, it no longer has the cadet badge. She has just a regular Starfleet badge now. So
you're
it may
right.
be that she's.
Good call.
This could be her coming onto the bridge as an ensign for the first time and taking the communications console.
Good call.
Yeah. Got more of Carol Kane.
Carol Kane. Woohoo!
Something blowing up. I hope that doesn't spoil it for anybody, but something blows up
Dude.
this season.
Somebody got blown up with it too.
And here we've got Spock playing his Vulcan lute.
And this is one
Ah.
of the images that I was most excited about.
Okay.
Because I like that quiet, introspective, personal view of who Spock is when he's by himself. And I
Yes.
loved those scenes on the original series of Leonard with that. And I can't wait
Yes.
to see if this is just a cursory scene, if this is going to be, if this is a meaningful moment for him. I'm really looking, because being a musician, I'm all about that stuff.
I
So,
agree, because in the episode, the Paradise Syndrome, the one with the planet with the Native Americans, as it were, that they were trying to save, when Spock had to spend several weeks trying to figure out how to decode the symbols on that obelisk, he was playing that to calm himself all the time.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
wanna-
when McCoy said, aren't you doing the calculations? And he's like, I am.
Yes.
He's just-
Exactly.
Of course, he also played that instrument with the space hippies.
right. But I don't think we've seen him play it since Star Trek V. I think that was the last
Yeah.
time we saw Spock playing his Vulcan
Ah.
lute.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited for them to reintroduce that to the character. And I mean,
yes.
frankly, I'd love for him to be on the rec deck, play it, and Uhura start singing.
Yes,
That would
please.
that would make my day.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Charlie's Our New Darling.
It happened a couple of
Interesting.
times in season one,
Yes.
and they let that go. But I don't think
Yeah.
they should have. I think that was a good element of the series.
Right. An
I wanna
interstellar
interject-
astronaut.
I
Go
want to
ahead.
interject really quickly that I see all the comments and questions that we have been getting during this part of the presentation, and we're going to get to them. Some of them I'm saving for a later part of this discussion, and a couple of them we'll get after we finish the trailer stuff.
Awesome.
So don't go away. We'll get to your questions.
Keep them
Yep.
coming, guys.
And feel free to interrupt me anytime, Alan.
No.
So
That's
here's that
rude.
scene you were talking about. Now, for one, you can see her badge.
Yeah,
We've got
that's true. I
Uhura.
didn't even notice
Good.
that.
Good
Yeah.
call.
Uhura, and she's looking distressed, and then we get the opposite angle
Yeah.
where it looks like a civilian shuttle crash, and we know from season one that her parents died in a shuttle crash.
Yeah.
And sort of a futuristic city here in the background, which I'm guessing that this is in Kenya.
That's possible.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that for some reason she's either dreaming about or reliving, the
Yeah.
death of her parents,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
which at least is indicating that we're going to get some meaty Uhura stuff this season.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm ready for it. We got some good stuff in season one. I'm ready to build on that a little bit.
Absolutely, that's one of the big opportunities of this series. Is Uhura is such an iconic character
Yeah.
with so little development,
Right.
and now we have the opportunity to get that.
Yep.
All right, so here we've got a strange planet, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. Some kind of something here with some folks approaching it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead right now and say I hope this is not the Guardian of Forever.
It sort of resembles that, doesn't it?
It does sort of
It's
It's
resemble
got that shape.
Please no, please no, please no.
I don't see any bowler
Well-
hats, so maybe
Well,
not.
okay, but let's save that until we get later into the trailer, because
Okay.
I think there's a possibility.
Okay. Then
Okay.
We'll put a pin in that
Beautiful.
for a moment.
Beautiful scene, though. Beautiful
Yeah, it
scene.
really
And
is.
this looks like it's the same planet.
Yes.
Maybe awaiting someone. Who knows?
Yes.
So this is a scene that I thought was cool because for one, we get real phasers, and often in new Star Trek we get the little pew pew squirt phasers.
Yeah, the
But
Star
in
Wars
this,
blasters.
we're getting actual phaser beams,
Yeah.
and they
And
get
a
wider and
double.
wider. It's sort of the classic Enterprise V phaser pattern.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's cool.
But then they do a corkscrew kind of thing. Like,
Right. Like, yeah, Spock at navigation, and Ortega's having a great time at helm because then they sort of corkscrew and
Yes.
blast a hole in that thing and fly through it.
That's crazy. I love it.
Yes. A vial bursting, which is always good in Star Trek. That's, a sign of good things to come. Nothing will go wrong.
Yeah, somebody's about to die or mutate into a monster.
That's right. And then a shuttlecraft flying towards sort of a maelstrom on an alien planet.
Mm-hmm.
I love this kind of thing. So great. So here,
Ding ding for the. I'm
now-
sorry, Charles. Ding ding for using the word maelstrom instead of storm.
Right.
And it's funny that you say ding ding right as the image
Yeah,
of
like, how
someone
did you
going
know?
ding ding.
I thought you were talking about this picture.
No.
So now we're sort of getting into the photos where we can have a little more context for. And in this
Yes.
one,
Yeah.
we've got a bell very reminiscent of the one from Shore Leave with a pad sitting next to it, and someone's ringing the bell. But I found that I could zoom in on this picture, and I flipped it over.
I did that too.
Yep, and it's talking about Lieutenant Commander Una is an Illyrian Federation Starfleet officer currently assigned to the as first officer of the Enterprise, and then below that it lists some of her commendations:
Yep.
Medal
So
of
this,
Excellence, Order of
so this is a,
Tactics.
so this is a trial then.
Yes.
Yeah, this seems to be the picking up of our cliffhanger.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And now I wouldn't guess that they're going to spend the first episode on a trial episode. If I had to
Partly, I would
guess.
think they could. Yes.
They could, but it doesn't seem like a very exciting opener to this action adventure series to me.
Yeah, it
You're
depends.
right; it could very well be.
But
They may cut
it's
to it
going to
and
be
come back.
the B story, and the A story will
Mm.
be something big and flashy. But I'm
Yep.
hoping that they don't resolve that storyline in a single episode. I want it to be at least 2, just because I
Agreed.
want it to mean something. I want it to
Right.
not be like, just an excuse to have had a good cliffhanger at the end of season 1. I want it to actually mean something, and I want her, her exoneration to
Mm.
be important, to be something that's significant to the storyline. So I want it to have some kind of weight to it.
Right.
Agreed, because we know that, I agree with that point, Alan, because we know that since the time of the Eugenics War, the Federation and Starfleet are really, really concerned about genetic engineered beings. So it's not a minor thing.
Yeah, it could be. Now, I mean, I was kind of thinking they're going to do that like the beginning of the episode and then get off on an adventure, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And maybe that's my
Okay.
hope, because I kind of like the way they handled it in Lower Decks, where just like they had a little separate adventure
Yeah.
going on, and then she was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm fine."
But I don't want it to be a repeat of the Lower
No,
Deck
yeah.
setup, though.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So there was a kind of a cool shot in this trailer where the bell transitions into a shot of Starbase
Yeah.
1, which we
Yeah.
saw in season 1. And
Yeah.
then there were a couple of shots that I sort of put together here of the Enterprise kind of buzzing the tower and flying away from Starbase 1. You can see it there in the background.
Mhm.
And then warping away. So that seems to me like, I mean, kind of heading off victoriously. I'm reading into that, but I would guess that Una's going to be fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. we all know.
Right. All right. So moving from that, we got a oversized interior of the shuttlecraft. But the thing that stuck out to me was, do you guys remember that little teaser clip they put out a little while back for Strange New Worlds, where Ortegas was getting ready for a landing party mission?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were heading down to Rigel 7, which was the planet from the cage where Pike had previously had that big basically disaster on it. Like they were ambushed by a Kalar, and a lot of people were killed and injured.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here they're wearing those same costumes.
Mhm.
And so this looks like they're heading back down to Rigel 7, which is, I mean, it's a pull from canon, but it's like the one planet we know of that Pike's been to from
Yeah.
Star Trek. So to me,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to go back to a planet that Pike has a history on.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So how many
Yeah.
times did he go back to that planet? Because that's the planet he went to just before he ended up on Talos 4.
Right. That was right before he was on Talos 4, he was there, and then now looks like
Yeah.
he's going back.
So
Nice.
he goes all the time?
Well, I don't know. That
twice.
was several years ago, at least twice.
Wow.
Maybe not all
What
the
a-
time, but
Yeah, what a mission. Your mission, Captain Pike. Go back to that planet where you almost died.
Right. So we've got a few shots of them in those costumes. Now, this very well could be the same planet that we saw earlier with the little portal thing on it, but they weren't wearing the same costume, so I didn't group those together. But he's looking through a spyglass here, and these look like they may be the Kalar, or Kalarians, as they called them in that little preview clip. But I noticed that there's a Starfleet emblem here
I noticed that too.
on the gate.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what's going on here, but Pike is sort of peeking through a spyglass and doesn't look happy about whatever's going on. So I'm kind of excited about going back to Rigel 7. I mean, that Rigel 7 matte painting is iconic.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that shot of the purple planet earlier that had the little portal looking thing had a big moon in the sky. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see Rigel 7 again. They also mentioned Rigel 7 in the first episode of Picard season 3, by the way. I noticed that when I was rewatching it.
I agree with you, Charles. That Rigel 7, that matte painting is beautiful. If I'm not mistaken, I think they reused it in the original series for Requiem for Methuselah.
Right. And then they changed that in this special edition.
Yeah. I love that. I love that shot. It's always been
I mean, that is a great effect shot of him running into that castle.
Mm-hmm.
And then as part of that teaser clip, they were talking about Ortega's had to stay on the ship to pilot the Enterprise through this like collision of two planets. And I think this may be that. I don't know that for certain, but I put it here with that just in case. All right. So here we got another planet. You guys ready to talk about this planet?
Yes.
And we've got visitors here.
Yes.
Getting into some Klingons.
I gotta say that elicited a cheer from me. The ship. I had that model when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And this looks like the sort of Discoveryized version that they were building towards on Discovery of the D7 battle cruiser. But what do we think of this new version of the D7 battle cruiser?
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Yeah, it looks enough like the original from the original series that I like it.
Yeah.
Yep. Are you guys excited to get Klingons again?
Potentially.
Are you over Klingons?
I like
never
Klingons.
over Klingons.
I like Klingons, so to me, it's always about if it's a good story, I'm absolutely fine with Klingons.
Right. Well, we get our first look here of the Klingons.
Yeah.
And they didn't go TOS Smoothhead.
No.
But I mean, to me, they look quite a bit like the movie Klingons. And with some TOS flourishes. I mean, you got a lot of gold here. His sash looks a lot like Kor's sash.
Yeah, that's true.
Where it's sort of more woven and not so. I mean, it's a little metallic looking, but like Worf originally had the TOS style sash and then moved over to that silver metal sash. But I think this is a really good look for the Klingons.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, with one exception, which I'm hoping you have a shot of, which I think you do.
I probably do.
I'm sure you do. You've been very detailed so far.
But I think this is a good compromise between the TOS movies and TOS, the show. You know, putting a little more like these uniforms here you can see in the wider shot. Like that's very like he's got the TOS style belt buckle almost and the black pants and gold top. Like I think this works really well. But in this shot,
like it a lot.
Yeah, they've got the next generation style like Klingon mugs, and Spock is sort of at some kind of bar drinking with a Klingon, and there's actually Klingon civilians surrounding them in the background and stuff.
So my thing is that, and this is based predominantly on Next Generation, that Klingons never had exactly the same head ridges. They had very similar ones if they were from the same family. And so I'm hoping that these three Klingons that we see here are from the same family, and that's why they look so the same. I don't want all their Klingons to have the same crest. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Now in the movies though, they did.
Exactly.
Like
so it
Star Trek
depends
3, they all had the same.
So it depends on what aesthetic they're actually. Now, see, this guy looks different.
Yeah, he's got different forehead ridges. And there's like an alien in the background. So
a cool looking alien.
Yeah. And like Spock's trying to like fit in with the Klingons, which I'm looking forward to this episode. I mean, I know we've seen Klingons a lot in Star Trek, but we really haven't got a Klingon episode aside from Worf this year since like the second season of Discovery. Yeah. And those Klingons were very different. Yeah. And then this year we've got Worf, and then we've got these guys. Where it's just like a little Klingon, like classic Klingon renaissance going on.
Well, the thing about the Klingons, I think, which is, I think they can always justify using them, is they are genuinely part of the history of Star Trek. From the original series, wars and treaties and so forth. So it makes sense. They've been there for a very long time. So I'm cool with that. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next episode that we have some photos from. There's a Constitution class starship, or something similar to a Constitution class starship saucer section, sort of in distress, some folks in EVA suits. But then we've got these Gorn ships. And these ships look like the Gorn ships from season 1. So the Gorn are back.
Of course they are.
Well, you got to comment. It's a podcast.
I'm gonna y'all gonna leave that. You know how I feel about the Gorn showing up, so I'm just gonna leave it alone.
And then here we see that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I wasn't commenting on your comment. I was just commenting on the fact that, yes, of course, they are back because they were the primary big bad from season 1. So, I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue that storyline.
Right. Well, here we've got the interior of that, what looks like that damaged Starfleet ship. Yeah. And we see that it's Nurse Chapel and Spock in those EVA suits. And things aren't going good.
Haven't the spacesuits improved since the original series?
Well, they don't have a mesh in front of their face.
Yeah.
They actually have a protective covering now.
Right.
Well, literally, it was a shower curtain, right?
Oh, you're talking about from Naked Time,
Yeah, those were
Naked time.
yeah,
right?
they were literally shower curtains.
Yep. And then we've got this shot from Alien 3.
Right.
Yes.
They're leaning heavily into it this year.
Yeah, like
Yes.
they really want the Gorn to be xenomorphs. I don't know why.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know either. I think it's
And-
because, like I said, for people like me who bellyache about the callbacks, they're making them so different. They can kind of say, "Well, it's not really the same."
Right.
Yes. Well, my thought was, okay, you people in season 1 said that all we were doing is copying Alien. Hold my beer.
Right. Well, now the Gorn that we saw in season 1 were like babies and juveniles. This guy looks a little bit bigger to me. It's been
Yeah.
a while since I saw that episode, but we may be getting some more adult Gorn, and it
Yep.
still looks practical to me. It could just be that it's CGI and it just looks really good, but this looks more like they're still going with a practical Gorn, which I like.
Yeah, it does to me too.
Yeah. All right, on to the next big thing.
Woo, baby.
We've got James
Definitely
T.
no
Kirk
comment.
standing on the transporter pad on the Enterprise.
Yeah. The man, the myth.
Yeah, he's
The-
coming, Keith.
Will be
I
one day
know.
a legend.
I'm just
Right.
gonna have to deal with it because this is probably the single worst plot device to me that I truly dislike is bringing Kirk on
We
and
know,
his
we
brother.
know.
But what do you do? You got to go with it.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me ask you all this thing since I literally can't stand the thought of Kirk in the series at all. However, I don't have a problem with the actor as much as I see a lot of people online who say they can't stand this actor because he looks too old for the age he's supposed to be. He has none of Kirk's charisma. Did you get any of that? Or does that even bother you in that case?
No, I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was as charismatic as Chris Pine.
I was going to
But-
say the same thing.
Yeah. But I mean, we also saw him sort of playing an older Kirk, not older,
Yes.
but older than he is in this series in season 1 in the flash forward, like alternate future. So, I mean, I'm willing to see what he's got to offer. I don't think physically he really strikes me as Kirk that much, but
Yeah.
I am glad that they're not going for like a Shatner impersonation. Like they're going
Yes.
more for like a serious younger Kirk,
Right.
which I'm fine with.
Yeah. And the actor said that, in last season, he was playing a version of Kirk that comes from an alternate future, basically. And this season, it's more of the Kirk that we know, more of the Kirk that we're familiar with. So I'm looking forward to seeing how much different the performance is and how differently he's written. So we'll see. We will see.
Yeah,
What's
I
his
hope
rank?
for him to be more like Kirk in like the first half of season 1. That's my
Yes.
perfect Kirk.
Yeah.
Me too. What's his rank at this time? Do you know where he's assigned?
Yep, we'll see that here in a future picture.
Okay.
But before we get to that, I mean, the joke in this trailer was seen that some chemistry with him and La'an, some sort of romance going on, and number 1 was teasing her about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But here, it's La'an and Kirk either back in time, which seems likely, possibly on like a parallel Earth. But the store is identifiable because it has the logo all over the place. It's a store called Roots that's in Canada. But Kirk gets. This is the scene where Kirk. You can see the Roots logo here, and you can see it over
I've
here.
never
on the
heard of
window
that.
as well.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
Canadian
yeah.
store.
Okay.
But Kirk gets stuck in a sliding, sort of Star Trek 4 style fish out of water. humor
Yeah.
with Kirk stuck in the door. But as he comes through the door, let me fast forward a little bit. You can see that he's got captain's braids.
Oh.
But also from this picture, you can see that he's not wearing the same badge. And the other
Yes.
shot, he had the Starfleet badge that our Enterprise crew has, and here he has a different one.
But this we saw location photos. Remember, like a year and a half ago or something, of him filming something right around this time. It's got to be this, close to this scene, and we saw that different badge.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna say, Guardian of Forever.
That could be. I hope not. At the very least, call it something different and have a time portal. You know what I mean? Because
Guardian of
that.
sometime.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it could be though.
Could
But
be.
what it looks like is that Kirk and La'an are in present day, and he even has a line that says, like, she's like giving him a hard time about not knowing how to use a revolving door, and he's like, "I'm from space," which is like sort of playing off of his.
Yes.
I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space. From They're playing heavily on Star Trek 4. It
Oh,
seems
yes.
in this episode.
Right.
And then we move on to La'an, and we get to something that every Star Trek show seems like they have to do now, which is make a thing out of the captain's phrase.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's gonna get old after a while for me.
I think for me, it's already gotten old, but I know a lot of folks like it. But we have Spock, presumably in the command chair of the Enterprise for the very first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, I mean, it's a pretty historic occasion, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "I want the ship to go now."
Yes.
And then everyone looks amused, and they
And then
warp
we go.
away. And yep, June 15th, leave your world behind. And that's what I've
I
got.
shall.
That's yep.
Oh,
Great
baby, that's a
job.
lot. That's a
Great
lot.
job
That
with
was-
screen captures. I didn't
that was-
expect. I didn't know you were going to do that. That was good.
Yeah, I thought it would be fun.
Absolutely.
So what do we think? I mean, anything you noticed going through it shot by shot, or any strong opinions?
I just noticed all the things that you noticed and told me about.
Okay.
I think one thing I've really noticed about the show from the first season, even from the screenshots you've seen, is more than any. Well, I'm not going to say that. That's not really right. Because Picard season 2 was a lot of outside stuff, but they do a lot of stuff that reminds me of the original series, which is they're always on these planetscapes. You know, as in it's not so much bound on the ship. They're literally on planets, they're walking around, exploring new vistas, new terrains, and I love that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's one thing. Like on Picard, they were filming that in LA, but their big like volume stage is in Toronto. So I mean, I think that would have benefited Picard to have some planets to visit along the way, because they were very shipbound in this last season of Picard. But that's one thing I like about Strange New Worlds, is that you're going to planets. You know, you're different locations. That's kind of like they're trekking through the stars. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of part and parcel of it.
It's easier to go to planets there because you got to draw the background anyway. You just draw a different background.
Right.
You don't have to actually go anywhere or use the VR wall or any of that stuff.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the original series so much, because remember the really cool thing about the original series, they go to a planet and the atmosphere was purple. And also something we haven't heard since the original series. Remember, they'd always go to a planet, and you'd hear what people call the music of the spheres. There was always sometimes weird like background music that they would do. That's always cool. So I just love those new vistas, as you said, Charles, because you think about going to a planet and you look up and there's 3 moons, or there's a moon so close that it looks like it's going to fall on you. I mean, wow, that's what space exploration would be about.
Yeah.
Which is that what we got in one of these scenes in this trailer where the Enterprise is flying around I mean, it can't be 3 distant planets, right? It's got to be 3 moons that were very close by, and I loved that. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah,
beautiful shot.
And their volume stage kind of reminds me of a high-tech version of the old cyclorama that they used to just put different lights on the different planets, but now they can put a whole planet there, which I think is cool. I think it's it feels very Star Trek. Even when it feels stagey, it still feels like Star Trek to me.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All right, we have got a stack of comments. So
okay.
Awesome.
And we're already at 44 minutes. So we
I
might
know.
have to save all the other stuff for next week's show.
That's right.
But that's cool. Give them a reason to come back. Okay,
right.
Matt Sweatman says, I want to see an eject pod button on Pike's armrest. Heck yeah.
I want to point out to Matt that it's called Jettison Pod, and it was named that after a great podcast hosted by Vanny Beth Glenn that everyone should check out.
Exactly. Dan says, have you seen the new stuff the Roddenberry Archive has been releasing? Yes, and we were planning to get to that tonight, but I think that's going to have to be next week.
I took too long with the pictures.
That's cool.
Adam,
that's a good shot.
Who knew that many pictures could come from one trailer? Adam Levenstein says she didn't even get an official first name until the lens flare era, that being Uhura.
That's right.
Dan says Uhura already sang in the second installment of Strange New Worlds first season. Yes, we know, but not accompanied by a Vulcan lyre. So
and that was my favorite Star Trek episode of the current era of Star Trek. So I'm well aware, but I want to hear her singing to the crew accompanied by Spock.
Interstellar astronaut.
Yes. He says the comic The Illyrian Enigma already established that the Illyrian genetic engineering was a result of brutal experiments done on them by the Vulcans, and that the Illyrians are to be sympathized.
Okay.
Whether that is considered canon and is maintained in the storytelling that we get on television is a different matter, and we'll have to
Mhm.
see where that,
I
where
can't.
I
they
hope
go
so.
with that.
I
I
hope
can't see the
so, because that,
Vulcans. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but that comic just came out, so I would hope that they wouldn't give a totally different backstory for the Illyrians.
Yeah. Well, if it's one
Interesting.
that just came out, then I would think that that would be intended to fold
Right.
into what's happening. Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh.
Let's see. Matt says, we know one planet Pike can't go back to.
Do we though? Because I feel like he's gonna go back there.
Yeah, yeah, probably so. Okay, Matt also asks, are they trying to undo any Prime Directive cleanup on Rigel 6, 7, 8? I don't know, 7.
Could be. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
He then asks, do you think they'll ignore Enterprise's Klingon Ridge loss explanation?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
it's getting confusing now.
It
Yeah.
is, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that not all of them lost their ridges. So really, even if they just showed Klingons with the ridges, that wouldn't really be a problem with continuity. I kind of thought like part of the storyline on Discovery was that the Klingons were turning themselves into humans, or at least Ash
Yeah.
Tyler, they turned into a human. I thought they might
Yeah.
tie that directly into, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, they could really do. They have a lot of freedom with the Klingons, I think.
Agreed. And
Yeah.
a lot of interesting things that can be told.
Mhm.
Adam Levenstein says, to me, the different head ridges was one of the most creative aspects of the TNG Klingons.
Mhm.
Yep, I 100% agree with that.
Agreed.
Dan sings us a little song and says, there's Klingons on the starboard bow. Yes, there are. Adam says, I agree. I think they should have kept Kirk off until the very last episode. Or,
Mhm.
Agreed.
yeah, until the last episode of the series, you mean? Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I figured they would have done, but no, they had different ideas than I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan Leckie says, I just watched the first two Alien films at the cinema, and noticed Ripley has D7 written all over her face in a scene from the first Alien movie. So maybe she's been watching this trailer. That's pretty
That
funny.
could be.
I've never noticed that before. That's hilarious. Dan also says, I watched some of Paul Wesley's Insta videos earlier today, and his vocal phrasing came across as particularly Shatner.
Okay.
Interesting. That's good to know.
Maybe
Very
he's going to be
interesting.
like that Aaron Butler guy Austin Butler, I think, who played Elvis, and he
Yes.
like
Yeah.
still has the Elvis voice. So maybe he'll just be
Yes.
talking like Shatner for years to come.
Exactly. Oh, Matt says, good work, Charles. And I'm not sure
Thank you.
why,
Yeah.
because that was, I guess that is toward the end. So yeah, thank you so much for putting all that together. That was really, really well
Yeah.
done.
Thank you.
Dan says the penultimate screen cap you showed has been confirmed to be Talos 4. So do you think it'll be in the show as a setting or just stylistic? Where is that
and
been
what he's
confirmed?
talking about there is that where it says something like leave your planet behind or something, and there's a planet behind, and it was a reused shot from that
Oh.
Discovery episode where they went to Talos 4, I think is
Oh,
what
I
Dan's
gotcha.
talking about, and I didn't mention that. But who knows? I mean, let's wait. For me, I would rather wait on Talos 4. I think that there's still
Yes.
story to tell there. I mean, because
Yeah.
you went from never return to that planet to Spock conspiring with them to save Captain Pike. So I think there's room there at the
There
very least
is.
for Spock to have contact with them. But
Right.
I know they're going to do like TOS tie-in things and continuity because they have to. They've shown that. But I would rather limit that. I get more excited about an
Agreed.
episode like Children of the Comet where we're just on a space adventure.
Agreed.
Right.
Right.
And then finally we have Elaine who says, hi, just chiming in to say I'm excited for the
Elaine.
new season. Hi, Elaine.
Awesome.
So a couple of things that we did not get in this trailer. And I'm not surprised by either of them. And I'm glad that they did not show us these things in this trailer. The first being Angel and Cybok.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, because I am so effing excited about whatever they're going to do with those two characters this year, and I don't want them to spoil any second of it.
Right.
The other thing that's been mentioned is that we didn't get any of the Lower Decks crossover teased in this trailer, which I'm also glad. I don't want them to spoil any of that. So we know from what's his name, Frakes, that there are animated scenes in that, and then the characters cross over into the live action universe. I don't want them to show us any of that. I didn't even want Frakes to say that. I just want to wait and see that episode as it happens and go into it just completely unspoiled. Don't give any teaser images at all.
I feel like they'll give something before then because they want to hype it up.
I know they will.
I kind of expected that in this, like where you'd have like all the whole trailer and coming soon, and at the very end would be like Mariner and Boimler, and we may still get that because a lot of times in the first episode they'll have like this season, and you'll get some clips. So,
well, and remember this was only a teaser trailer. It's not even a trailer. It's just a teaser trailer, and look how much stuff they gave us.
I know, and it may be that we're just seeing stuff from the first half of the season. They do that a lot of times.
I'm sure that's what's going on. This is only like 4 or 5 episodes,
right? But
100%.
There's a lot going on in those first few episodes.
Yes,
I think for some reason, for me, more than the Klingon ship caught me. That's that classic look. I just haven't seen that look in so long. It really did. So that was kind of neat to see that.
Keith, I thought you sort of emphasize that second syllable, and I thought you were going to say something about, what I liked even more than the Klingons? The Klingoffs. I was like, I don't know where he's going with this.
I was going to say, I hope they call them Klingons because I think
that would be awesome.
It's the Klingons.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Whew, baby. Well, we've got a few minutes left. Is there anything else we want to cover about this trailer, or do we want to?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm kind of glad they gave us a little bit of a break and they didn't overlap it. It's a little bit overload, because last year or last season, I guess it was like on top of each other, and I don't want to. I need a little time to digest Picard before diving into Strange New Worlds and getting, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot.
Yeah.
I like this. Last year we had basically a year of unbroken episodes, and I kind of like having a little space in between each season. Not only because it gives us on a podcast a chance to talk about other things than just that week's episode, but because you sort of, I like being able to, kind of live with that thing that we just finished seeing before jumping into a new thing. Right. So I'm glad for a little bit of a break.
Yeah, with somebody who grew up in a time where you didn't get new television from May through September. Yeah, I'm fine with that too. Yeah, I think that's really nice. I really do hope that number one gets more. Obviously her, like you said, Alan, her trial. I hope it's not just a one and done episode, but I really would like to see her develop more and more central to the show if that works for the actress.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also don't want her to be gone from the ship for too long.
Right.
That's why I say let's make it 2 episodes instead of just 1. Wrap it up in 2.
Now, did we end last year? Was La'an off the ship? Like, didn't she leave the ship prior to? So it could be that, like I was talking about, I didn't think that'd be very action packed for them to be having a trial in the season and episode 1, but it could be that they're intercutting with La'an on a time travel adventure with Kirk while everyone else is back dealing with Una and her trial.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's possible.
I'm speculating here, but
right.
My hope is that I want a satisfactory resolution because that was a big cliffhanger at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend a lot of time. I don't want to spend like a season on Una, and it doesn't look like we're going to get that because it looks like she's just back in the action.
Exactly. So clearly it's not going to take too long to wrap that up, but I want it to be more than just, I don't want it to drag out.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe they can do it in 1 episode and still make it meaningful and still make it impactful. And as long as they do that, I'm fine.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting about the whole concept of the genetic engineering? is in Enterprise, Dr. Phlox mentions that genetic engineering is extremely common on his planet, Denobula. Now, I don't know that they mean they enhance people, but he basically mentioned that his people have a much more, I guess, relaxed and casual feeling about it than humans. So I guess they never had a eugenics war. So one of the things I find curious or interesting about the whole thing with Una is she's in Starfleet, where in the Federation, well, Starfleet, where it's basically illegal to be genetically engineered past a certain point. That's a very interesting concept because humans, Earthlings, Terrans, may have much more of an issue with genetic engineering, even genetic enhancement, than other races may have. So
Right.
that's an interesting conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it seems like
Yeah.
Klingons are genetically changing themselves all over the place.
Right. Right.
And let's be honest, if like I've told people, I've said this so many times before I had health issues. I'd always said if somebody could safely genetically engineer me to take my family's propensity for diabetes out of me, I'd take it. If somebody could genetically engineer me where I didn't need glasses or contacts, I'd take it. And and there may be some planets where it's nothing wrong for you to genetically engineer your kid to where they have a little bit better breathing capacity so they can go to the top of a mountain and don't need breathing gear. There may be whole planets where it's considered normal. So that's an incredible conversation when you have a planet where genetic engineering, even some slight genetic enhancements, is not considered forbidden on a planet, but then you want to join Starfleet. That's a weird thing to have to hide that.
Yeah. And I hope they get into that kind of thing because we got two Star Trek shows that are exploring this genetic enhancement thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not every genetic enhancement is making you Superman. Like if someone said to me, "Hey, we can make sure your kid's not going to have cancer. Do you want that?"
Yes.
And I'd be like,
Right.
"Yeah, I'll take it." You know.
Absolutely.
But then it's, well, do you want her to be taller? Stronger? You want to be better at sports? So you know what I mean? Like it's a slippery slope. You know.
Exactly right. That's the danger of it. When you get something that is helpful and it goes well, that encourages you to do more and then more. And on a societal level, that's when it becomes, something that is potentially dangerous.
Right.
And that's how you get Cybermen.
Well, that's true because you're right. You could end up with, you can have a thing where the elite and the rich and the powerful and the connected become genetically engineered and the rest of us slubs aren't.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Or you can,
and then it becomes a class thing and
Exactly. Yeah. Or you have a world where WWE stars get genetically engineered because that's their job. Right. Nobody else does.
But you bring up a good point because that then comes into the, narcotics for sports. Are you doping to perform better? Have you genetically engineered? And it's the same thing. Is someone not engineered having to compete in a foot race against someone who is genetically engineered? And how does that play out? How do you balance that?
Right.
Yeah.
It affects every little aspect, even if it's like a mental thing and you're competing in a job situation, and you can never get ahead because someone else always has the advantage.
Right.
Dude, let's write a whole new series. Oh, I'm excited now.
Yeah, there's a lot of fertile ground there. I hope that they get into the sci-fi implications of it, and it's not, well, we've determined that Una was heroic on the Enterprise, and therefore she will be allowed to continue.
Right. She used her stuff for good.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan says, thinking about folks like the Binars and the Jem'Hadar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which are also two races I would love to see again on Star Trek.
Oh, yes. Yes. I don't know about, Jem'Hadar we could do. And oh my God, had we gotten them with the changelings, holy smokes, that would have been amazing.
Sorry.
But, Binars I would love to see again.
Yeah, I'm surprised Lower Decks hasn't done. I mean, they did a picture of Binars once, but I'm surprised there's no Binars in the crew. Like that's like a perfect Lower Decks thing.
Yeah,
that really does.
All right, so we're right at time. Originally we had sort of slated a few things that were coming up in Star Trek to talk about tonight if we had time, and we didn't have time. So, do you guys want to circle back around to the other things next week? So, next
let's
week
do
we're
that.
getting into, the news of Section 31 and what they're calling Star Trek Phase 2. Which does not include Lieutenant Zahn. to my disappointment. But also, I mean, we've got Starfleet Academy coming that we haven't really had a chance to talk about. We've got the potential for Star Trek Legacy. So we've got, I mean, there's a lot
we got a lot of,
just a few weeks ago, I was kind of worried that Star Trek was contracting. Seemed like they were closing some things down, and then over the last few weeks, it's just like, well, look at all this potential. Look what we've got going on. So I'm excited again.
They have come through for us yet again.
Right. I say this all the time because I grew up in a different time from so many people who are much younger than me. But actually, the Section 31 movie excites me because I grew up with TV movies. Movies of the week. Right. And even when series ended, there would always be this is definitely gonna go where people say it's a McMillan and Wife movie, or
right,
or Spencer for Hire. Maybe some people know that. So the concept of a movie is kind of exciting to me.
Yeah. Well, let's hold that for next week so we can get more into it, because we got over the last few weeks, we've had to sort of just mention the news and then move on because there was a Star Trek episode to talk about. So next week, we're going to be deep diving into Section 31 and so forth. But join us Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern if you want to join us live. Otherwise, we'll be available after the fact on our YouTube channel or on our podcast, Earth Station Trek.
And all right, let's just say this. If you have thoughts about this trailer that we just reviewed tonight, or the Starfleet Academy show, or the potential Star Trek Legacy show, or anything that we're going to talk about next week, you should drop us a line on our special phone line.
That's right. The Earth Station Trek hotline.
That's right. Earth Station Trek hotline, which is 307 387 1701.
You forgot the jingle.
No, I didn't forget the jingle. I just forgot the numbers that go with it.
Okay.
307 387 1701.
Yep. And I promise if you call that number, it doesn't ring to a person who answers. It's a cute little message from Veronica, and you can leave a voicemail message, which sends us an MP3. So if you're nervous about someone answering, don't worry about that. But it'll send it, and we can play your message and your thoughts on the show. So Section 31, Starfleet Academy, Star Trek Legacy. If there's something you want to see, 307 387 1701. And Dan, I see in the comments asking about international calling rates. I don't know, Dan. I have no idea.
Sure they do.
I'm sure they do. I would presume so. So if you want to email us an MP3, that's fine too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
email MP3 to earthstationtrek@gmail.com.
Right on. Awesome. So if you folks send us this stuff, we will include them in the show.
But but try to keep it to a short, don't do a half hour on Section 31. Like,
that's our
keep
job.
It concise. Keep it concise, like a comment, not a speech. All right,
speech.
All right, Keith. Do you? I'm sorry, Alan. Where can people find more of you? I forgot what I'm doing.
I don't know. So you should check out my other podcast, Modern Musicology. If you're a music fan, buddy, so are we. So we got you covered. And we've got a lot of great interviews that we've done lately. Two of the members of Heart, Tony Levin from Peter Gabriel's band. We have had Gina Schock from the Go-Go's. We have had authors. We have had all kinds of stuff. And we just did a show about the 27 Club. And that's all the legendary musicians who have died at the age of 27. So go check us out.
So Hendrix, Joplin, and all that, right?
Exactly. Wow. So go look for that. Modern Musicology.
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And I usually would say, how about us, Veronica? But Veronica's not here, so I have to carry the weight myself. Feltnerdy.com. And actually, we're getting... Hang on, because Felt Nerdy, we're actually, for the first time since the pandemic, we're getting back into doing conventions. We've been just doing DragonCon for the last few years, but we've got appearances coming up at Frolicon, at Metrotham in Chattanooga, at FrankenCon in Tennessee. We're getting a little back into the convention scene, which for a long time, that was our thing. We would do like 15 conventions in a year. So it's exciting to get back out. So if you want to see Felt Nerdy, we got some adult shows coming up, which Frolicon will be an adult show. We've got one of each at Metrotham, and we've got some family shows coming up as well. So check out feltnerdy.com, which redirects you to our Facebook page, and you can follow along with what we're doing. Or you can listen to us at Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys. Did I do okay?
You did.
That was good.
It was perfect. Okay. She would be proud.
All right. Does anybody have a closing for us this week?
No, know. I didn't even think about that.
Then I'll say I want the podcast to go now.
And it shall.
Thanks, everybody, for participating.
Thank you all for your comments and questions. Don't forget to
Yes.
call and leave us a voicemail so we can include it in the episode next week.
So we don't
All right.
sound so desperate.
At this point, yes.
Someone call.
All right, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.